Yeah. No, I thought you might want. We probably. I know it is a big steak, isn't it? Can't say it's not value for money.
This steak costs you, restaurant costs you $20.
supporters who did the bulk of the work for it. I would really like to thank them because it's been a massive job and a massive undertaking. So I do hope that you get something out of it today. So today, and bear with me, this is my first time ever doing a PowerPoint presentation, if you can believe it. I've managed a little bit of time without it. Let me see. Right. So one of the main reasons that we're here today is because of this fantastic panel that we're going to hear from. So we've got Greg Tomello, our Ipswich City Council Interim Administrator. We've got Robert Dow, who is from Rail Back on Track, and that's a public transport advocacy group. We've got Kath Innes, who's our Superintendent of Ipswich Police District. And we've got Michael Willis, and he's our West Moreton Hospital and Health Board Chair. So please give them a round of applause for coming along today. And we will hear from them in a little while in a Q&A session. But first, I'm going to take you to Vanuatu. This is a journey I went on about a month ago, and bear with me, this is just not me gloating about my beautiful holiday. But my lovely partner, Dave, who's down in the audience there, took me to a remote island called Auray Island. No electricity, no running water, no shops, no transport as such. Can organise the locals to take you around. No big resorts. It's certainly not a tourist destination. Private little beach, you can see down the back that we had. Didn't see anyone else swimming around there, which was lovely. So we're on this island and we got invited to a local school fundraiser. So we went along and for the first couple of hours we were the only people there, and a very basic school, just a few buildings, not many books. I think only one teacher provided by the government. Some of the kids had great English, some of them spoke no English, depending on what they had at home. And we're having a great cultural experience. And then some other Aussies turned up. So some expats living there and some missionaries. And we got talking to them and I said, oh, well, where are you from? And they said, oh, we're from Springfield. I said, oh, there you go. I'm from Ipswich too. And they said, no, we're from Springfield. And I said, yeah, which is in Ipswich, which is where I live. And she said, no, we're from Greater Brisbane. We live in Springfield. I said, yes, no, I understand where it is. And that went back and forth for a little while until I got suitably obnoxious and said, well, who do you pay your rates to? And of course, Ipswich City Council. And I said, well, there you go. And Dave shuffled me away before I could cause any more trouble with the islanders. And I tell that story because I think that is a really good indication of some of the issues that we have around identity here in Ipswich, and some of the issues we have around embracing our challenges and opportunities going forward, because we still are a little bit confused, some of us, about, is Springfield Ipswich? And Springfield, I guess, is the heart of, and the Ripley Valley is the heart of where our population growth is. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. And that was the biggest outcome we got from Bernard Salt, was we all know that the population is growing at a great rate. That's not new. But he looked at what we need to do to really embrace that and where the opportunities are. So I think, the reason that people are moving here, we all know, is it's affordable, it's got lifestyle. But hey, you're just down the road from Brisbane where there's job opportunities. We need to look at how do we create those job opportunities right here so people don't need to duck down the road to Brisbane and people feel connected to Ipswich and take their opportunities here. So the population growth. Those numbers are small, so I'll run you through them. In 2004, 233,000 people in the Ipswich region. In 2017, 342,000 people here in the Ipswich region. In a little over 10 years, we're looking at 553,000 people in the Ipswich region. This used to keep me up at night. I was just saying to Jen Howard, end of last year, when I first really started looking into these figures, it used to just give me nightmares. And I thought, how are we going to do this? Fortunately, Bernard Salt, who, if you've ever heard him talk, is very inspiring. And he certainly made me look at this as not just the challenges of how, what's going to happen to us, but how do we make the most of this and how do we come out shining and thriving because of it? He did call it a tsunami of people. And he described it as a tsunami because it's people in every age group. This is not a retirement village where people are coming in their later years. It's not just a high birth rate. It's across every age group. We're being hit with a growing population, which of course means that we need more of everything. And also allows us some opportunities. I know there's some educators here in the room tonight. Richard is here from Boys Grammar, and I think Peter Britton's here. So there's a few educators here tonight, and I think there's some incredible opportunities there for them with this. I know that 2 different friends who don't know each other have recently moved to Ipswich because they wanted their boys to go to Ipswich Boys Grammar. One of them, their son is only about 9 months old, so they're already planning for that. And they did it now because they knew they could afford a house now, and they wanted a big block. So certainly some incredible opportunities in the education sector. Where are they all going to live? Now, I'll get my trusty sidekick Cordell to help me with my bit of drone footage here. And I know it's not great here on the screen, it's a bit slow, but this shows us where people are going to live. Not our traditional Ipswich big blocks. And you've got housing developments like that, which are allowing people to come in and buy houses at really affordable prices, but there's nothing around them. So right now I live in Old Ipswich and I have shops around the corner, I have a bus station, I have a train station. There's not a whole lot of that out there, but the houses are there and the people are coming. And I love this quote from Bernard Salt. If you think Ipswich has been a focal point for growth over recent years, then I would say you ain't seen nothing yet. Ipswich is sitting at a pivot point between the 3rd largest job market in Australia and one of the fastest growing places on the Australian continent. So, I don't know, that's a big quote for me. I'll get Cordell again to do his magic here. So this is a bit of drone footage. We've been having a good time with our drone over at the Queensland Times, as you can see. And again, I know it's probably a bit hard to see, and for the people at the back, if you turn to that screen, you might be able to see it a little bit better, but incoming, we've got traffic back to back, barely moving, going at a really slow rate, whereas our friends who are heading back to Brisbane after their hard day of work have a bit of a free run doing 100 down the highway. And of course, it's the opposite in the morning where it goes the other way. So the point Bernard makes about this is we need to create a strong, vital regional centre that tugs at the talent of Brisbane and sucks it in our direction. You've got the motorway in place, but you're only using it half its capacity in the morning because everyone is going in. So obviously that's the reverse of that, but basically he's saying, hey, we need people to come here because we're all going there and we're all stuck in traffic each day. We've got jobs coming. You can see we've got 280 jobs over there for Costco. And over here you can see this is Australia Post, which has just been built. This is Rheinmetall. Wish Costco was already open and I could have that glass of wine. I'll drink that much later. So we've got jobs coming. We've got Coles Distribution Centre as well, which is great. Hundreds of jobs coming in the next little while. And this is what Bernard has to say about our business sector. The Ipswich region is quite entrepreneurial. You are creating businesses at a faster rate than the Australian average, and the figures prove it. Can-do, proud, independent culture to make it their own. These are not public sector workers. These are self-employed, self-made, individual tradie shopkeeper types. So we've got people opening businesses at a faster rate than anywhere in Australia, and we've got big companies coming in with lots of jobs. But we want more of this. This is where the opportunity is for our city. These are high-tech jobs. So we've got TAE Aerospace there, we've got Rheinmetall, and this is what Bernard says, and this is why we want more of it. I want strong levels of entrepreneurial growth that actually employ people. So I never want to take away from the amazing mums and dads who are opening businesses, the cafes where I drink my coffees, they're where I go out for dinner in the evening, where I go and buy my gifts for people, where I do my shoe shopping. That's fantastic. But they might employ 2 or 3 people. We want this. Hundreds and hundreds of high-tech jobs employing highly skilled people who are tertiary educated. We need to be creating the job skills for the jobs of the future. We want tertiary education types, and we want better training facilities provided here. Here's an opportunity. We want all of these people to come and work in these places here. Why don't we train them here? We need the facilities here. They come here, they train here, they work here, they stay here, and they send their kids to school here. CBD. Everyone's favourite topic, judging by our recent reader survey we did. The number one most consistent answer we got was about the CBD, and we asked a question, what project would you like to see completed in Ipswich in the next 12 months? Pretty much everyone said the CBD, and I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. And we don't just mean the mall, we mean bigger picture, we mean the infrastructure that allows people to come in and work in the CBD because there's offices and facilities there. So taking Ipswich CBD from 12,000 jobs to 20,000 jobs in a decade is good policy, good planning, and more efficient, and builds a sense of place. I think what Bernard is saying there is that while we would love to have a CBD that was all retail like it used to be, and that was strangely an answer that people also gave about the CBD, was they just wanted it to go back how it used to be. They just wanted the mall to be how it used to be. It's saying that if we don't create a bigger, better anchor point, like a health precinct, where people are going to come every day, the businesses will never get off the ground there. Because people come in, they need their coffees, they want to do some lunchtime shopping, they want to have a knock-off drink after work. That's where they're going to do it if we've got them there for work every day. So that's really important. And he's saying jobs, population and infrastructure needs to flow in this direction for a generation. So that's going back to that, sucking people out of Brisbane and bringing them here to Ipswich and giving them an opportunity and making the most of that other side of the highway that we're only using at half capacity. So where to from here? We just want more of everything, I guess, and we need more of everything, and that's the message, is that this isn't about just aged care facilities or just schools or just hospitals. We need it across the board to help with that tsunami effect. One of the businesses that Bernard said would thrive here, and I don't know if you've got some friends in the health field, but obstetricians. We're having lots of babies around here, so people that are going to come in and practice those disciplines in medicine are going to do really well. Again, I think we've got a few DAs for schools out there, and we certainly need to see some schools popping up in the Ripley area. But we've also got some schools that have been around doing their amazing work, putting out incredible alumni for a very long time. They're some of the oldest institutions here in Ipswich, and they've got an opportunity with this as well. I've just got a release just about 5-10 minutes ago through saying that there's a new medical centre opening up at Ripley. I didn't quite have time to read it, but you know, there's people certainly in that area who are recognising, well, the population might not be there now. In 5 years it will be, and they're going to be embedded in the community already doing that. And I know that Jen earlier today sent through some numbers on the bus route in that direction that is being heavily utilised. And I know you know, you fought for that one, and it's shown to, it's been proven that it was needed. And I think Robert can talk a little bit more about that as well. So I think going forward as a community, we have to have a plan. We have to know what are our key needs, and we have to focus on getting them. So we know in infrastructure it's a Springfield rail line. We know that there's a great master plan for our health sector, but we need the money, and we need it now, and we need the government to understand that we're playing our bigger role in southeast Queensland. This is not just an Ipswich issue. This is a Brisbane issue. This is a southeast Queensland issue, and that's why this is my favourite quotes from Bernard Salt, because it's a great call to action. Minister, we need schools, we need aged care facilities, we need hospitals, we need university training facilities, and we need assistance right across the board. We are accommodating, Minister, of your policies of a big Australia, which is terrific. By that he means, you know, we want population growth in Australia. We want to fuel the economy with population growth. Well, it's happening here, and we're allowing it to happen. We're doing our bit. Everyone is in work, everyone is paying taxes, and we want the services back, Minister, to cope with this. That, I think, is the takeout for all of this, that we're doing our bit, and we're entrepreneurial, and we embrace opportunity, but we do need help from the government in order to happen. So I think going forward, we're going to have an action plan. Be very eager to get feedback from all of you, what your key takeouts are and what your key projects are on to come out of this, and that's something we'll you know, go forward and lobby the government, hopefully alongside our panellists who are key players in their areas. And I'd like to now invite them up onto the stage. Don't all run, come on. And we'll do a quick, Cordell, can you fix that? Can you go to slide 2 for me? Thank you. Great.
Yeah. Nope. Give it my name tag.
I'm going to move this chair around a bit of read.
Yeah. Now I'll give that one to you, and you can just pass that down. Yeah. Okay. So I want to start at a grassroots level. So I'm going to start with Greg.
Sorry.
So Greg, what are your key concerns around our rapid population growth regarding council services specifically?
Coincidentally, I've written down some notes about that very question, just to read your mind. Look, I've got 4 points I want to talk through. Dealing with rapid population growth. The first is council's ability to plan and prioritise the infrastructure we need to keep up the pace with the growth. You know, Australia, and I make a joke quite often that Australia's only, the infrastructure has lagged behind development in Australia only for the last 230 years. You know, before that it was okay. So we have traditionally lagged growth, population growth, and that's exacerbated here when we're the fastest growing local government in Australia, certainly in Queensland and probably Australia. So that's the biggest challenge. And it's more than just transport, it's the sport and recreation facilities, we were talking about that earlier on, the community facilities as well as the roads. The second challenge for council will be operational costs. So as population grows, you know, the demands for chasing up those errant dogs, you know, picking up wheelie bins, those services are very expensive, and they will increasingly become expensive, and they just happen to increase commensurate or faster than population growth. So as a council and as ratepayers to council, that's a big issue, you know, the increasing operational cost. Third challenge is not really for council, but it's for the state to match the local government. So it's that state infrastructure that we talked about, the schools, hospitals, public transport systems. That's key, and we're lagging already. And the last one I want to talk through is a strange one, perhaps. It's the council's ability to take the Ipswich communities along with the journey of change. And it comes back to your Vanuatu example. You know, the council needs, in my view, in the next 10 years, has got any more time than that, to really harness the communities of Ipswich and craft this communities of Ipswich as a thing. To have a council and to have a community that sits in the old days and says, we're from Springfield, or we're from Goodna, you know, or we're from Rosewood, and that's where we're from. And there's no overarching Ipswich thing is a problem now. And it'll be a worse problem as the city grows. You'll have a whole raft of new folks coming in with very different social mores and norms, and you know, that's a big challenge for this community to craft this vision, because if you're going to get any success in getting any Commonwealth or state funding or anything, you need to have a massive community support behind the shared vision. That's a soft and touchy-feely kind of thing, but I see that as being very essential for council.
So Kath, I think, you know, we've talked about council services, but what about policing services? What does policing look like over the next 10 years? We know that just throwing more people out there is not the answer, but how many police do we need, and what is the answer around the next 10 years?
And I think you're right there. Throwing more police at the problem or our community is not going to solve the crime problems and underlying social issues that come with population growth. So it's not about necessarily throwing more people, it's about thinking smarter about the way we offer services and how we integrate with our partners. So we have a vast array of government and non-government agencies that are already embedded out here in our communities. It's making sure that we are connected to them and that we understand what their capabilities are and what our capabilities are, and then finding out how we work together. So, for example, you know, you talk about youth justice and youth issues. That didn't all of a sudden pop up. That's been going on, you know, something's been going on in the background with their families and with their education. You know, they are being connected through lots of different agencies before they come to us or our notice. So it's about forming closer relationships with our schools, with our social workers, you know, with our health system, to identify the issues earlier and then look at it more as a case management process to harness the resources that are there. Yes, we will need to grow as a police service, yes, and there's certain areas we will need to grow, but we're also internally looking at how we provide service across not only Ipswich but across the state.
And what kind of changes can we see in policing? Is there a more mobile police force, technology?
Yeah, sure. Definitely our crime types are changing, so we have to become more tech savvy. So we're recruiting a different workforce, we're looking at a different way of doing business. We need to be looking at more at hubbing, co-locating with other agencies as well, you know, our fire, our ambulance, our support services. So providing more of a holistic care arrangement for people. You know, cybercrime is a massive growth industry for us, and I think we're probably ill prepared generally as a community and even as a policing response to be able to respond to that. So there's some of the changes that are coming for us, but also in the way we respond to our community. You know, we really need to be just going to those high risk, high intervention matters, and the other matters need to be dealt with in more flexible ways, that the community becomes more resilient and helps themselves.
So does that mean, I guess, educating people not to call the police for, you know, I guess because they've locked themselves out of, you know, their cars or something like that?
Yeah, unfortunately, I suppose from my perspective, I think I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I'd love to be able to turn up, you know, when your cat gets stuck in the tree or You're left to keys in the house. But realistically, we have so many more people and we have so many more high-risk matters happening. We need to prioritise, and we need to be there for those people who need our immediate help. So yeah.
Michael, I mean, health, obviously, we've seen over the past couple of weeks, issues really cropping up and coming to a head there around wait times and stuff. How's West Moreton coping with the population growth, and what's the plan going forward?
Thanks, Shannon. Yep, it's been a real challenge in health. A little bit too close, is it? Okay. There's been some real challenges with an early onset of the flu season has given us an indication of what that peak pressure is like in health in the last few weeks. We've coped with something like a 26% increase in our inpatient beds usage in the last 3 years in our region without one item of new capital investment in that time. So there's been some really smart solutions, some innovation in the processes for managing people through the health system. Even in the last 12 months, March on March figures, I think, showed a 26% increase in our emergency department presentations year on year, 26%, and a 38% increase in the high end, the category 1 presentations at emergency. So this is a really, you call it a tsunami, it is. So there are some things we can do smarter in terms of our process. We have to invest in capital, and we've developed a master plan that's a strategic plan that feeds our master plan, which is a 15-year program. It's about we talk about in health, putting the right care in the right place at the right time for people. And so we're thinking on a 15-year time horizon to make sure that we've got the right facilities in place around the region that will deliver that care as close to home as we possibly can, and have still the core hub of a major tertiary hospital that will be by then, ready for the highly complex care challenges. The other element is a bit of a take or a riff on what Kath's talked about, partnering smart with other providers and other organisations to keep people out of hospital. We've done something innovative with the police over the last couple of years, which won statewide awards, and it's now being rolled out across the whole state, where our hospital, mental health nursing staff, the police, and now the ambulance services are going to be working together to keep people out of emergency departments, keep them out of watch houses. So it's about keeping them out of hospital, prevention and lifestyle improvements.
And Robert, I think you're pretty vocal out there on the challenges that we've got around public transport. You caught public transport here today from Goodna. How was that?
Thank you, Shannon. Yeah, it was an interesting trip, as it always is, around Ipswich on our rail and bus networks. Just to give you a little anecdote, my wife and I caught public transport here today. Did anyone else catch public transport here today? 1, 2, yeah, 3, yeah, probably about 5%. In southeast Queensland, of all the trips that are made, about 7% on average are taken by public active transport, so that's about right. Okay, now we were scheduled to catch the 11:05 train from Goodna to Burvale, and then catch the bus from Burvale at 11:28 to arrive here at 11:34. Now the train arrived at Goodna 5 minutes late, which often is, so the transfer window at Burvale, 7 minutes, is now cut down to 2 minutes, and Superintendent, there was a number of QPS and senior network officers at Goodna who wanted to do a sweep through the train, which would have delayed the train up to 4 minutes. That would have meant we would have missed our connection at Burvale, and the bus from Burvale only runs every hour, so that's a problem. So I had a quiet word to the senior network officer, and I said, look, my wife and I really do have to catch this bus at Burvale at 11:28. Any chance of doing a bit quicker? And they said, yeah, we'll try to do it real fast. And they did. I had a quiet word to the guard, and I said, look, we're trying to make the bus at Burvale at 11:28. You're now 8 minutes late. The transfer window's 7. He said, okay, we'll see what we can do. And they were pretty quick at arriving at the party stations, and we had a minute to catch the bus. Now, it's a problem when people do miss those rail bus connections, though. They have to wait for another hour. The fundamental problem is that the frequency of rail, and particularly of our bus network, is very poor. So Street generally, is improve our bus frequencies. It's one of the best things we can do in transport investment. It's big bang for the buck. We need to get the 1 hour frequencies to 30 minutes, the 30-minute frequencies to 15 minutes, and that will then transform the mobility, the connectivity to both rail and the bus networks around Ipswich. That's our first priority. Second priority obviously is to focus on the big picture items such as the rail extension from Springfield Central through Ripley in Manto and back into Ipswich. The state government doesn't want to do anything with that at the moment until Cross River Rail is finished, and that's understandable because it will add additional loading if it was done now, for example. But we think there's a case for certainly the first stage to be started concurrently with Cross River Rail, so that when Cross River Rail does open in 24, at least we have part of that rail extension done.
When we're talking about, I guess, transport out in those areas, and Kath, I just want to throw back to you for a second. The fact that there are those little housing development hubs popping up and there's not a lot of public transport, does that impact on policing? Do you see issues because of that?
Yeah, we do. Two aspects of that. It's during the construction phase is the first port of call. You have different construction groups undertaking pockets of construction, and you generally don't have a lot of residents living around those pockets. So there's opportunity there for crime, and we actually are seeing it. It's quite difficult. We're trying to come up with some problem solving around how to reduce that and what's, because that does impact on us. The other aspect is when we start to get everyone moving in, and when there's no transport, you've got a captive audience. They've got nowhere to go. You know, mothers with children, they don't have ways of getting around if they don't have their own vehicles. Kids don't have their way to get to school. People can't go to work. So it just rolls on from there. It causes more issues for people. And then obviously in their leisure time, there's, you know, less easy ways to get around. So, you know, potentially can lead to drink driving, to aspects like that. Speeding on the roads out, if they're out more country or rural, which some of them still are at the moment. And then we obviously got calls for service in those areas. So look, the construction, as soon as they can get quality railway and bus networks, the better it is for the residents. I suppose the other side of that is, it means you've got more people being able to transit through those suburbs that may be there to cause some sort of alternate mischief.
Right, thank you. Greg,
Thank you.
bit of an individual question for you, but what do you think the council can reasonably achieve during your remaining time as administrator, which isn't a huge amount of time for the work that you've had to do, in the kind of key issues relating to population growth? So is there something there that you can do in this remaining time that you've got, or the council can do?
Yep. I was reaching for my phone to grab the app to tell me how long I've got to go. So you're right, it's I do have the app. Less than a year to go. Look, I didn't write this down, but I think the key thing for me is in a year's time, returning to you a council that is effective and operating well and can plan and deliver growth. It's the key thing, is an organisation that has the capacity and the resilience and the capabilities to do it. So that sounds like a long-term, that's a long-term benefit, but the key thing for me is getting that platform right. So platform building is number one, not in the way that Robert would talk about platform building. One of the 18 transformational projects we're doing, we've got 18 across the business of the local government, is prioritising major regional infrastructure projects, and we'll release them to you for your comment, as in the public for comment later on. And that's taking the big, scary, audacious projects that perhaps haven't seen the light of day. So it's grabbing the North Ipswich Stadium with the mills next door, and say the North Ipswich redevelopment is a project. Clearly the biggest project for this city is Springfield Rail Line back to Ipswich, as Robert said. That's by far, that's absolutely essential, and you'd start digging that tomorrow if you could. But it's bringing those projects to the community to say, what do you think about these? There's some pretty audacious transport planning, and as in road cycle network planning that has been done, that I think needs to see the light of day. You know, I'm not allowed to call it the outer ring road, but the outer ring road model, which you will see and go, you know, is an idea. Sorry, is the appropriate, I think, transport solutions for transport around the city. That's a $1.5 billion project in current dollars. So it's bringing that up as an administrator. I can do that and say, bring this to the community, and it's then in the community. So no one's hiding behind that. So that's one of the jobs. And really, it's that governance structure of council, getting that governance structure right. I think the last one for me is the new planning scheme. So we've kicked off a new planning scheme. I'm a lapsed town planner, so that was one of the first things that we need a new scheme because ours is pretty ancient. So you will get to see the very first versions of the initial thinking about what the scheme could do. And it's a different way of doing a planning scheme. It'll be 30 mini schemes, so there's 30 sort of communities of interest across the city. And so there's 30 mini planning schemes that you'll see in a couple of months' time for very, very early thoughts, non-statutory, non-formal consultation, but it's what do you think about this before they launch into it. And that sets a benchmark for the next 10 years. But the core for me is, you know, returning to the elected councillors in a year's time, a council, an operating council, that, you know, can do the job.
Mike, just talking about the immediate future again, because obviously our population growth looks at, you know, projections 10 years down the track, but, you know, what does Westmoreland Health need in the immediate future to help alleviate some of the pressure on the ED?
As you know, the Premier announced a major investment at the first stage of our master plan, which included a range of things, mental health facilities, some land acquisition that people might have read about somewhere, and a number of other services. We're looking at that all the time to make sure we're getting it right and delivering the right services. So we're working with the department, the minister, and with other stakeholders, Commonwealth and state government representatives to explore the best results. I can't really outline more than that at this point, but we're looking at it. It's a live challenge for us to make sure we get it right. The truth is the population growth that we projected 2 or 3 years ago is coming on faster than it was expected. So the numbers at the end are the same, but they're coming earlier. So we need to adapt and adjust. So we're in the process of doing that now. But certainly there's an element of more hospital beds needed. That's absolutely right. But in health, I don't know whether there are many health people here, so forgive me for this health cliche, but we talk about standing at the bottom of a cliff with ambulances and waiting for people to fall off. And that's a lot of what hospital care does. We want to spend more of our time and energy putting fences at the top, educating people as to why they shouldn't be falling off the cliff, so that we don't keep having to build more and more hospital beds. And in the interview with your colleague Lachlan, I think we spoke about the Denmark model and their dramatic reduction in the number of hospitals and the number of hospital beds, with a view to keeping community care and healthcare closer to home through local GP networks, local clinics, and other services in the home or close to home. So that for us is part of the medium-term solution as well as the bed solution.
Robert, thinking about this, Bernard's kind of insights that we've got entrepreneurial spirit here in Ipswich. What would you think of someone coming in and starting up a Lime Scooters or you know, city bikes type of model for public transport around Ipswich?
We strongly support active transport actually, and I think Michael would be pretty keen to do that as well. People who cycle, walk, and perhaps use scooters tend to be fitter, tend to be healthier, and, excuse me, tend to be of less weight, right? Now this is pretty important. Diabetes is going to be a major factor in terms of cost and impacts on the health of the community generally. So if we can get people out and about, and if scooters will get them to do that, that's a good thing, right?
But does it help with transport issues?
Well, not necessarily, I think, around Springfield and Ipswich so much. It's sort of a thing that's well suited perhaps to inner cities like Adelaide, perhaps not so much Brisbane. At the moment, there's a bit of a speed differential between Lime scooters and pedestrians. Scooters at 25 kilometres per hour against pedestrians 4 or 5 kilometres an hour doesn't really mix. So I think they need to rethink that a little bit. But can I just branch off a little bit? I think there is something that can be done really exciting around Springfield to improve local transport mobility connectivity, and that is having small-sized minibuses, if you like, carry 15 to 20 people, running locally, servicing from suburbs into key activity centres, such as the new hospital, the university, the train station, the shopping centre. These run in cohort with the normal route buses, the 522s and the 526s and so forth, and this will help ease some of that parking pressure, right? Now I'll ask you a question. I've got all the patronage here for the various railway stations and bus routes around Ipswich. I can't remember it all, so that's why I've got to have a little bit of paper. I'll just ask a simple question. What do you think, which station do you think had the greatest growth in passengers last financial year, 17-18, we're still going through 18-19, between Darra and Ipswich? What station do you think had the highest patronage growth, relative growth? Any ideas? Redbank? Any others? Dinmore? Bundamba? No one's got it yet. Goodna? No. This is going to really surprise you. It was Gales. Now, Gales officially, if you look it up on the QR website, has 0 car parking spaces. Now, I guarantee you today there's 300-400 cars verge parking at Gales. Why? They can't park at Springfield Central. They can't park at Richlands. They can't park at Wakefield unless they verge park. They can't park at Goodna. They go to Gales. And those figures show that. The other ones that had very high growth is what you mentioned. Dinmore, particularly. Goodna, Redbank was another one, 9% growth. Gales, incidentally, was 13, just over 13%. Now, this is a sign that our park and ride system is broken. It won't work, and it won't work when we get 500,000 people around the area. We've got to provide better active and feeder bus networks to get people from their homes to the stations and back home. That means they must start early, they must run late. They must run at a frequency that's usable for people. Perth, Western Australia, is very interesting in terms of their park and ride setup. They charge $2 a day for their park and ride. They pay using their Smart Rider ticket, which is the same as our go-kart. But their feeder bus networks are brilliant, right? Lots of good feeder buses, so people have a real choice. They can either park and ride for $2 or use the local bus to get to and from the station, pay nothing in effect, because the way the zone works on the ticketing is you realise it's just a continuation of journey in most cases. So we need to look at what we're going to do to solve this parking problem. We can't keep building new car parks. Springfield, 44.5 million for 650 spaces. That works out, folks, $68,000 per car parking space. If we just took the money for 5 car parking spaces, we could run 2 or 3 buses 20 times a day between the suburb or between the houses and the station. We could transport 1,500 people instead of 5. The fence rests.
Thank you. Very passionate. This is where we call a passionate advocate for transport. Greg, what should the new council, after the next local government election, make its #1 priority in relation to our population growth?
I didn't read the question properly because I've got 3 or 4 things for #1 priority. It shows my maths is not my forte. The #1 priority, I should say, don't undo what we've done, but that's not the appropriate thing for me to say. It really is, it's aligning the capital budgets and the operating budgets of the council to meet the demands of growth, and not going back to pet projects or divisional split projects or populist projects. It's actually being disciplined about the capital and the operating expenditure of the council that comes substantially from ratepayers, is spent on the areas of need that the growth demands. that's the discipline I think that the council, the one thing that I could ask them to do is to keep that discipline going and not go back to the populist pet and regional kind of and divisional kind of projects. The second part of the first question was really, they'll be continuing stuff that we've started and that can't be undone. So the CBD development will be well and truly done. It'll be half, 2/3 built by the time the council comes in, so that continues on. We will have spent a fair bit of the $750,000 on the business case, initial business case, for the Springfield, Ripley, Ipswich rail line, and council is spending that money. It was a recommendation by officers that we go seek money out of the Commonwealth or the state governments for that. And I said, no, we will spend ratepayers' money on that, on a state project unashamedly, because that's fundamental for this city. So we've got to build the case so the other levels of government have a well-argued case and a reason to make a decision about it, rather than just us just lobbying to say, you've got to do this, you've got to do this. So that's money well spent from us. So there's a few things like that will be done. And the planning scheme, it's finishing off the planning scheme. So those things have got hopefully no choice, they'll be underway. But it's getting the discipline, it's retaining the discipline that we want to build in the next 12 months about the rigour of what the council should spend its money on and how it should allocate its resources.
Mike, we've talked about care closer to home, obviously, and keeping people out of hospitals, but does Springfield need a public hospital?
Look, it's great. It's a bit of a misconception. Springfield already has public hospital bed care in its hospital there. Mater Hospital has a Springfield campus, and we commission them to provide public care services, public health services out of that hospital. So there is public health hospital care in Springfield now. As that grows, as that region grows, over time, there will be more of that commissioning. Now, whether that will always stay within Mater and Springfield, or whether there'll be additional services to service the Ripley and Springfield region, that will be something that will emerge over time. So I want to sort of dispel that misconception that we don't have public health care there. Of course, the areas of controversy are around emergency department and maternity care. Of course, with all of those services, you need to have a certain critical mass of population and, of course, the clinical capabilities to deliver. And to put maternity in context, I'll give you a very personal story. I've got 2 kids. Our second child, very simple birth, no problem. Could have happened in a very small regional or local hospital without clinical intervention. Number 1 child, major complexities, real issues with the birth of the mother and my wife and our daughter. And she wouldn't have survived probably had she not been in a major complex services hospital with obstetricians and paediatricians who could do that work with the skills. And you can't do that in too small a service unit. So you need to have critical mass. And that's why we're waiting for the right time to put those sorts of services in the key places around the region. It's about clinical safety as well as population need. But yes, we will get Springfield growing. Yeah. Can I just pick up on something you said earlier? And I noticed you asked it with your question of Robert earlier. You talked about innovation and smart private sector jobs, not the public sector. Now, I want to dispel a bit of a myth. I come from the private sector professionally. I've worked in the role as chair of the health board for the last 3 years, and I've been blown away by the innovation we see in the public sector. There's smart clinicians, doctors, nurses, and other clinicians doing really clever things. Same in what we're seeing with the police services. So I think that innovation culture needs to be Ipswich-wide and industry-wide across government and private sectors. And we shouldn't be sort of talking either one of us down. We should be actually talking us all up.
I'll pass it on to Bernard. But I do think Bernard wasn't necessarily talking down public sector, but he's saying we need more than that. We can't just rely on public sector jobs to do this. We do need more than that. So, but I'll certainly pass it on. How are we going for time? What are we at? Oh, okay, we're going a little bit over. In that case, do we have some questions? If there's enough questions from the floor, we'll do a few. Does anyone have a question they want to ask? Okay.
Who's this going to be for?
And just tell us who you are. Stand up and just tell us who you are.
Oh, hello everyone. I'm Janet Tewton. I've been involved with a group called Irate Ipswich Residents Against Toxic Environments for the last 7 years. We've had
It's a health issue.
It's a health issue. My question is for Greg. I'd like to know how the new planning scheme is going to translate into better amenities and better way of life for all the people living around or in close proximity to Swan Lake and New Chum.
Thank you.
Yes, so the draft of the 30, I think 2 or 3 of those 30 little mini planning schemes, let's call it, around that area, and one in particular. They pretty much take the TLPIs, the temporary local planning instruments, and apply those policies to the new planning scheme and embed them in the scheme. That's the starting point that the officers are at. Beyond that, I don't know, and that's really the purpose of going out early for engagement, because their thinking is, that's the current thinking of what needs to be done. You might have a different view, and that's the purpose of the engagement. When you look at those of you who are involved in that and look closely at the temporary local planning instruments, they are quite specific in the benchmarks they set, and the issue as a lapsed town planner for me is not what it says. The issue is making sure that what's said actually happens. So the benchmarks there are no impact on adjoining amenity, not minimal impact but no impact. Pretty damn high benchmark. We've got to make sure that the council officers understand what that means and implement and enforce that, and the state does the same with its environmental assessments. So for me, it's not so much the words in the scheme, but it's the deliverables by state and local government about making sure that that's actually done.
All right, well, we might wrap it up there, because I know that Robert has to catch a bus at about 2:26, and we know what the wait is if he doesn't get that bus.
It'll be another hour wait.
Yeah, he's got to wait another hour, and we wouldn't want that. He's made all the effort to come out here. So please put your hands together for our panel. If you've got more questions, feel free to ask them if you can get them on their own. But thank you, and thank you all for coming along.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon.
Well done.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thank
Rob.
you.